Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, September the 19th, 2025, and today we're talking about if you should keep this year's potatoes to grow next year's potatoes, the lifespan of any business, and it is Feedback Friday, so let's do it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, that awesome cover of the theme song came to us from Alexander Novello and the River Valley Charter School in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Alexander writes, quote, "My middle school marimba class indulged me and learned the melody, chords, and bass line for my favorite podcast, so I hope everyone enjoys our cover. There's nowhere to, quote-unquote, support our music per se, but if anyone is so inclined, we have been going through marimba mallets and guitar strings like crazy recently," end quote, and I will link the mallets and strings in the show notes with the address to the school if anyone would be up for sending some supplies to the marimba class. So awesome. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. I hope your weeks have been all that you dreamed they would be when you were young and idealistic. I mean, hopefully you're still young and idealistic like me, even as I am creeping into my mid-30 teens. It has been a good week here, getting the rest of the fall garden, ready, getting the gardens ready for winter. I'm also going to tarp some areas in the future orchard space for next year for more potato production, because that seems to be the one crop I definitely need to grow more of for next season. If I'm going to slightly elevate our production next year, which as of right now is the plan, but I'm going to have to do it between tree plantings, which I did this year, which should be cool anyway. I want to have beds of stuff growing in between our trees. So I'm looking forward to that and feeling good about how the fall is coming along so far. Anyway, it is Friday, which means Feedback Friday, where we explore what you all were saying about this week's topics. On Monday, we talked about sowing winter-killed cover crops, and I had mentioned that I like to soak the seeds in a compost extract, but in a pinch, I will dry rub the seeds. At Trish3580 asked, quote, "Hey Jesse, did you mention what the dry rub was? I didn't hear anything but saw the mention on a slide. Maybe it means taking the damp seeds and rub them in soil so they'll spread better. As I know, every time I try to sow wet seeds by hand, it works poorly. Was hoping to plant today, but will wait. Hopefully Jesse or someone else is able to answer. Googled, but found nothing. Never thought to soak crops, though I'm guessing not tiny seeds like crimson. Thanks," end quote. And yes, I will answer, albeit, a few days late. So the dry rub, as I called it in that slide, is just a good, fine compost. If I don't have time to soak/prime the seeds, I will rub them in the best compost I can just to ensure that they have some good microbes right there where they need them, which would be on the seed. Indeed, I don't really do the, any sort of soaking for the tiny seeds because that would just be a mess to deal with. Soaking works best for spinach seeds or larger, a very normal standard of measurement used all over the world, because most of those small seeds will just stick together. I also told the story that day of some out-of-control parents at the soccer games this past weekend, and at Super Geek wrote, quote, "My little bro reffed a little league baseball for a few summers. Without fail, he'd have at least 2 parents a day yelling at him or in his face about a call. The kids were like 8 and under. My brother was maybe 14, and these fully adult parents would try to get confrontational and bully him over calls. It was crazy. It's not just bad behavior. It's also terrible role modeling for the kids about what acceptable sportsmanship looks like," end quote. Absolutely 100%. Perspective has really disappeared for a lot of people. These are just games for kids. No one is handing out scholarships at Little League game or a rec league soccer game. And frankly, even if they were, they would probably skip the kids whose parents are yelling at the refs, because there are thousands of kids just as talented, but whose parents are actually chill. There is no need for parents to talk to officials, just at all. Especially because some of these officials are 14. They're kids. So yeah, just not necessary. A huge reason kids drop out of sports by the time they are 13 is the pressure from parents. So yeah, let's all just stay calm and let the kids play on and have fun and just enjoy watching our kids play the sports that we love. All right, back to farming, at least for a minute. On Tuesday, I talked about the Milpa/Three Sisters exploration I'm doing and got several comments from people trying or who have tried the Three Sisters style gardening. At Cascadian Giraffe, for instance, wrote, quote, "Interested in the varieties chosen for the Three Sisters project. The way I was told it worked was using corn that was more like maize than sweet corn. beans that were harvested, dried, and gourds that would survive on the ground after the vine died off. The thought was that the planting area was harvested all at the same time and required no input during the growing season. Also, I was told that we likely don't have the same varieties available anymore. I tried it a few years back, but didn't plant it well enough, and it was super difficult to harvest. Certainly going to be trying again with better focus on harvesting timing and doing it on a larger scale, end quote. Okay, thanks. And so just to be clear, I don't speak for what is and is not used in traditional Three Sisters planting, not even a little bit. I'm interested in the wisdom of it and in being helpful where I can by learning a little bit from it. From that, what I know is that the Milpa / Three Sisters style plantings was not and is not done in any one specific way across the entire country, but rather done in many different ways adapted to those climates, using many different growing methods and crops that themselves are / were adapted to those areas. The corn used in, say, Arizona had to, still has to, for those indigenous growers, be extraordinarily drought tolerant versus the corn used in, say, New England, which needed to, still needs to, be faster into production in wetter conditions. And yes, in general, crops are planted and then harvested all at once when they senesce, but that doesn't mean they are not also harvested for different things throughout the season. Green beans, fresh corn, fresh squash, huitlacoche, squash blossoms, and so on. Also, many other crops can be incorporated as well, including what we consider weeds. That would be like amaranths and lamb's quarters and etc. So to me, it isn't that the crops no longer exist. It's that level of a relationship to the land, the ability and desire to develop and understand crops and land over time that all of our ancestors once had and cultivated, that is gone. In effect, the right crops can't just be ordered out of a seed catalog. Like all relationships, it has to be built and earned and created. Yeah. On Wednesday, loads of great compliments about the conversation with Mikey, like at Steve Bowen, 1645, probably not their birth year, but I don't want to make assumptions here, wrote, quote, another one hit out of the park. Great job, guys. Big thanks, end quote. Thanks. I'd love to get he and Kez on again at some point and to talk about what they're up to and the agriculture down there as their season develops. I really love listening to and chatting with other growers like that, especially those who have different experiences and on many different farms in different contexts. So yeah, I'm talking to them about getting them on again at some point. Especially, I'd love to hear from Kez as well. Then on Thursday, we discussed crop rotations in a small garden and lettuce diseases, and at Chuck Littleton, 6084, asked, quote, been watching for a little while now, and I'm curious about your opinion on the use of fire in the garden to prevent diseases, end quote. So good question. And honestly, I was thinking about this the other day with the milpa patch because, of course, fire would be a big part of soil preparation for many indigenous growers. And I was thinking about fire because I have some grassy edges in areas that I think could use a little fire for weed control as well. So honestly, I'm fine with fire in a world where the person employing it is trained to use the fire in this way and control it. What I wouldn't want to do is tell you to use fire for weed control in a garden and then start a massive wildfire. That caveat out of the way, fire could be a really great addition to certain operations in certain contexts. I don't know the extent it would control diseases, though that could be an interesting segment for future research, but it can add things like some wood ash and kill off some weeds. So in theory, fire could be a great addition if done safely, of course. As always, you all are amazing. Couldn't be more proud of our comments section. Couldn't be more honored at all the support you all give us. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will tackle potatoes and if and how to store them for planting. BRB. This week I'm trying water in a coffee mug just to see if it has the same effect. Not bad. Not bad. I have to hold it like this so you see the Brighton and Hove Albion. There you go.
Hey y'all, this is Alex in Southern New Hampshire. I'm the music teacher whose students made today's cover for the show. As the school year rounds into full tilt, there's definitely a little less time for pruning and harvesting and weeding. So we miss a couple raspberries and we miss a couple flowers, but I'm really proud of the systems that we made that have provided us so much food and fun and a lot of flowers for the farm stand.
Today's episode of the Growers Daily is brought to you by Farmhand. Farmhand is the virtual assistant built for farmers, helping CSAs scale sales, run error-free fulfillment, and deliver 5-star service. Whether you're at 100 members or 1,000, Farmhand helps you grow without burning out. You've heard us and our farmers right here on Growers Daily. Explore farmer wins and learn more at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. Does this show bring you $2 or $5 per month worth of value? You can chip in and get your questions answered, because although I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, I will always get to those Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Ryan, who writes, quote, "Hi, Jesse. Thanks for waking up early." Yes, it is early right now. It is 6:34. "I learned so much from your podcast. I want to keep seed potatoes for next year. I had a failure recently trying to keep carrots in sand. I was thinking maybe I could refrigerate the potatoes until next year. Would it work? Also, is there some risk of spreading viruses without more complicated measures? I am growing Yukon Gold and Russet, end quote. All right, great question here. Now, I'll tackle the easier part first, which is that if your potatoes are cured and you do not plan to eat them this winter, then you can indeed technically save them at refrigeration temperatures, and they will last you until, you're ready to plant them in the spring. For eating potatoes, that, let's say for French fries or potatoes Anna or potatoes gratin or baked potatoes or potato salads, the good stuff. But for potatoes you plan to eat, 45-ish degrees Fahrenheit is preferred because the colder temperatures will harm the flavor and texture, or at least change it. I don't know if harm is the right word, but change it. For freshly arrived seed potatoes, cellar temperatures are preferred as well. Like, you don't need to shove those in a refrigerator. Maybe even slightly above that would be what you would store your average eating potato. For long-term storage of seed potatoes, though, fridge temps are fine. But the bigger question here is, should you save your potatoes and then use them to grow out next year's potatoes? Like you ask, would there be a risk of disease? Well, yes. As you grow and use potatoes from the year before, you do run the risk of propagating diseases such as viral and fungal pathogens. You also may be losing some amount of yield. It might also likewise not be obvious that the previous year's potatoes had a disease at harvest or in the growing season, but then once it establishes on your farm, it can be hard to get rid of. In fact, some viruses can slide into the potato production via things like aphids pretty late in the season, so the diseases may go undetected in the production until you plant again in the next season. This is also true of potatoes purchased at the store, but maybe more so because the growers who, supply those potatoes don't care if it had a disease at the end of its life if it didn't affect the yield. Those are not intended as seed potatoes, so there's no reason for that grower to be concerned about testing for plant diseases. In that way, and for those reasons, ideally you are getting certified seed. Now, what's the difference? Well, certified seed is a bit of a process, and there may be more than one way to do it, so I will just describe it as I understand it. It starts with seed potatoes that have been tested for pathogens before they are planted. So you know how I've been playing around more and more with, starting potatoes from slips, basically growing the potato plant in trays and then transplanting only the plants to see if I could develop any sort of yield from that. Well, that's sort of how the seed potatoes work. They are generally sprouted, and the sprouts are transplanted into specialty pots in highly controlled conditions, and then the resulting tubers are used as quote-unquote foundation stock, essentially seed potatoes that are used to start the main seed potato crop in the field. That's the abbreviated version, but essentially the idea is to grow a disease-free potato crop that is used to grow a bigger version of that crop that the growers can then sell as certified seed potatoes or certified disease-free. The potatoes are monitored and tested for diseases throughout this process and are grown out in fields where they are again tested and monitored even after harvest. Then they are sold as certified disease-free seed to you. So in short, it is entirely possible to save the seeds from the potatoes that you grew, but it is not always a good idea in terms of yield. They will not likely yield as much as the seed potatoes, but also disease. If you are going to use your own potatoes from the previous year and don't feel like going through the whole foundation seed process, then use the biggest tubers that you have, and also try to use only potatoes from healthy plants from the previous season as well if you can. Also prep those beds well, like really well, with good fertility, preferably good compost. That just helps ensure the best crop possible. Anyway, I hope there was something helpful in there. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll get down to business, or at least what takes businesses down, or at least how long it takes for it to go. You'll get it. Be right back.
Hey No-Till crew, this is Tom in North Texas showing off my backyard garden. Here I'm trying something different, interplanting my fall brassicas with an oat and pea cover crop. And then as we transition over, I've got some sun gold tomatoes that are still hanging on. And then lastly, we have a whole section of purple hull peas that are still making peas for us. That'll be our second crop off of them this year.
Farmer Claire Coleman here from the Winter Growers Podcast. Did you know that I also founded Real Farmer Care, a nonprofit that supports farmer well-being? From my own experiences farming, I knew firsthand that this type of support was missing from ag, so I decided to do something about it. As of today, there are over 500 farmer recipients of a $100 self-care award, with more applying daily. If you'd like to help, each $100 donated supports one new farmer. Visit realfarmercare.com to donate and learn more. Again, that's realfarmercare.com.
All right, so there's this thing that has been bopping around in my head for the last few weeks, and it's this idea that small businesses, on average, rarely last over 10 years. Almost any small business, no matter what it is not likely to last more than a decade. Quoting an article on commerceinstitute.com, quote, according to 2024 data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 20.4% of businesses fail in their first year after opening, 49.4% fail in their first 5 years, and 65.3% fail in their first 10 years. That's a much better survival rate than the frequently cited myth that half of businesses fail in the first year. They don't. However, the average survival rate of a business does greatly depend on industry, end quote. And it has a nice chart, this article does, on fail rates of different business sectors. In fact, agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, which they group together, fare quite a bit better than a lot of other industries, with first-year success rates of over 87%, but a 10-year success rate of 50%, which is above what they said is an average fail rate of most businesses of 65%. So in that way, farming is actually a longer lasting business than some others, but that still means that after 10 years, half of the farm businesses that started, assuming that, fishing, hunting, and forestry are not skewing the statistics too much, but after 10 years, 5 of every 10 farms started will be gone. And in fact, in my now 16 years of farming, I have seen many farm businesses come and go, but I don't think that tells the whole story. A lot of those folks still work in agriculture in some ways, either on the advocacy side or the distribution side or selling seeds, etc. And many of them are still growing food, just maybe not on the scale of running a business. This is partially because farming is hard, sure, but it's also because farming is running a business, and running a business is not for everyone. Also, just because a business fails, quote unquote, does not mean it failed. Sometimes you get deep into the project before realizing that it's not for you. Or sometimes it's the market that changes, or the climate. Divorces happen, injuries, your interests just change. That doesn't make it a failure. I mean, you could argue that it makes it a success, that you didn't spend the next 30 years doing something you didn't want to do, or maybe weren't great at. In that way, failure is one of those words I think is sort of bizarre in context to businesses, and especially farms. The implication being that once you start a business, if you don't do that business for the rest of your life, you're a failure. That is a wild and unrealistic standard. I once heard that the average person has something like 3 to 7 or 5 to 7 different careers in their life, not jobs, careers. And there are some surveys and data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics to back that up, though it's hard to nail down perfectly. But anyway, if the average thing to do is change jobs, I'm fascinated that the verb we use when someone starts a business and doesn't see it through for more than, a seventh of their life, that it's a failure. I think for me, the failure is that we expect to want to do the same thing every day for 30 or 40 years and then presumably have someone else take over for us. What a weird pressure that we put on ourselves and eventually our families. Like I said, most of the farmers who I have seen hang up their boots are still in some ways operating in a different space, a different career within agriculture. It's important for people who, for instance, own restaurants, who once farmed so they know how to work with farmers, or people who work at the local ag nonprofits and such, who understand what farmers actually need. So to me, I think the statistics I'd like to see is less about how long the farm businesses survive and more about how long the farmers stays involved in agriculture, because I just don't feel like failure is quite the word there. And I know, because I battle with it myself, that running a business isn't for everyone, even if farming can be for anyone. I also think that the fact that so many small businesses in general do not survive very long is an indictment of the environment around businesses in general in this country. If we want more small businesses, they should just be more fun to run, easier, and more supported through financial literacy and various institutions and agencies. I think some wholesale changes in the way we design farms and other businesses, from farm collabs to co-ops and so on, would greatly improve the success rate. And I also think if you try something and it doesn't work out, that's okay too, because, YOLO and all that good stuff. But also, learning how to grow food and what it takes to run a farm business will last you a lifetime, even if the business doesn't stick around that long for your entire lifetime, which is fine. Anyway, thoughts, rants of your own, let me know. Otherwise, we're done here Friday. But before we go, we're going to take a quick word from our friends at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems. Whether you're growing tomatoes for market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing growing. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to do that in the show notes. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and Alexander Novello and the River Valley Charter School for their theme cover today. Also shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the waning month of September. Can you say waning month? I feel like that's not the right term. Anyway, sign up in the month of September. You get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Patrick Weaver, who keeps us going every Friday. Shouts to Patrick and anyone else who would consider the sunlight level over there at Patreon. All right, so Daisy, our referee, is standing there, staring at her nemesis, Coach Rusty. Both of them completely confused. Daisy is confused why Rusty looks so young and has no idea who she is. Rusty is confused why this person even knows who he is at all. After some conversation and back and forth, she learns that Rusty woke up a little hungover in the park downtown, and so when young Rusty kind of walks off, she goes to investigate, and there she finds it, a bottle of some sort of liquid, an elixir, if you will, right where Rusty said he woke up. Did this elixir somehow turn Rusty young? That breaks all the rules of logic. If so, why? Where did it come from? And then, just like that, Rusty, old Rusty, comes stumbling out from behind a tree, holding his head, looking disheveled. She looked at him and said, "Rusty?" He just shook his head and explained that his oldest son from his first marriage, who lives way out of town, Rusty Jr., had come back to town, and they'd gone on a heck of a bender together. That, he said, pointing to the bottle in Daisy's hand, "stay away from that stuff. It breaks all the rules." Then he mumbled something about needing to go get his job back and ambled off unsteadily, leaving Daisy laughing. "See you Saturday, Rusty." Rusty stops and says, "Oh, I thought I requested a better ref." Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.